Yeah.
I'm gonna tell my son keep it down.
Hello, and welcome to the Black Techies podcast, courtesy of the HBCU Digital Network. I'm your host, Herbert Seward. I am joined by my co-pilot, partner in crime today, Miss Leslie Moore. She's part of the Techies. And this is going to be a pretty interesting episode today. There's been a lot of news recently today that hasn't been dominated by Will Smith's slap that was heard around the world. We'll be talking about that a little bit later in the episode. But today, the tech news that we're probably going to be talking about, there's some big news from E3 that came out, namely E3 not happening this year, which is, I'll be real. For all intents and purposes, sucks. It sucks really, really bad. We'll be talking about that, and we'll be talking about PlayStation Plus's new monetary structure for customers. And I think that was pretty interesting when it came out this week. Um, but first things first, let's uh, let's get some general thoughts about E3 or lack of E3 in terms of it
Ooh.
not going. I mean,
Oh,
what was the first thing that you thought about when you heard that news?
this is a bad one to be honest, because a lot of people, a lot of general consumers who don't normally go to the exclusive event, the exclusive Apple events or Sony events, E3 was their way to get their hands on the newest everything. If you can't get it, if you can't get that super exclusive backdoor invite, you definitely were able to get an invite to E3. And now that avenue is shut, and it's I don't know if it was cost effective, but that's gonna leave a bit of a mark in the industry, to be real, especially if you couldn't get to
Yeah,
CES.
yeah, it's a bad look in my opinion, man. I mean, E3. Um, I mean, CES is one thing because that's more of a consumer, a general consumer driven type of deal. For for general audiences out there, casual folks that use tech. E3 is game specific, and it's something for those of you that out there that are not really familiar with E3. Um, E3 is essentially the showcase that developers and game creators use to really showcase their new products. Whether it's Sony or independent developers or you name it. Um, that's a pretty important platform for visibility for those things every year. And the fact that they're not having it in any capacity, yeah, that's a bad look. That's a
That's
real
a
bad look.
horrible that's a horrible look. I think it's gonna reverberate through the industry. Like I said, if you couldn't get into the early Apple events this year, the Sony event, the Microsoft event, if you couldn't get into those events, if you're not on that super exclusive, hard to get into list, 9 times out of 10, you were banking on going to E3 to be able to at least touch the prototypes, get a handle on what the next moves are. It may not be the big releases, but you'll at least get to play with the new technology that was fair, especially since this was supposed to be the first physical year since before 2020. So this was going to be a huge deal for it to come crashing down. And then just like it went from, okay, we're going to do physical. And then they're like, wait, we're not going to do physical. We might do virtual. And then they just cancel the virtual with no real explanation. It's kind of an industry shaker.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll be like I said, I'll be honest, man. As somebody that's a gamer that looks forward to E3 every year, it stinks. and it
Oh, I was
really kind of,
hyped.
yeah, I mean, I was hotter than fish grease when I saw the news come out, because it was just like, dude, what? I mean, you guys are E3. I mean, what? I mean, y'all don't have any other backup plans? Nothing? That's what's hot in the streets. You know what I'm
Right?
saying? That's a it's a optically it's just a really really bad look for the industry, and it's um it's something that for independent developers in general, people that are trying to get their mark out there, that may have had to deal with one of the larger developers or larger studios. It's a killer, because that's one really big venue for visibility that's just not there this year. And for those folks that are indie developers, that can make or break developers, man, literally. So
And that's really who's going to take the hit is the smaller developers who were banking on E3 to be able to show their prototypes. I mean, you just got to think a couple weeks ago with South by Southwest, you couldn't get in there. I mean, you got to think a lot of people really put a lot of money and a lot of energy and time to getting ready for their E3 demos. Because I mean, this is it. This is the big time for them, especially for these smaller these indie studios, these smaller app developers, influencers, people who are trying to make their mark. I mean, you had everything banked on this summer, and it's shot for you. I mean,
yeah,
the bigger companies are going to be like, okay, we could just host our own events and call it a day. But I'm talking about these smaller ones who are like, hey, we finally got on E3. We're gonna make it. We made the big time, and poof, canceled with no word.
yeah.
You know?
And I think it's something that yeah, it's just it's hard to really 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 it's hard to really put into words for the regular listener or regular viewer of our podcast how important E3 is in the biggest scheme of things. It's like the Super Bowl for gamers, essentially.
Yeah.
um it's essentially that it's that big for gamers, for developers, for the gaming industry, and for that to really take the nosedive that it is for them to do this news. um it was um it was something that that's really that's really going to be um it's the focal point. It's that simple. It's the focal point.
Yeah. Yeah. This is to be honest, I don't know how they can explain this to make people want to come back next year.
Yeah.
This is a
I,
bad, especially since they haven't had a really good one or a physical one since 2019. 2020 was what it was, the year the pandemic struck. Last year was virtual at least, but still you didn't have the real E3 feel. But this year was supposed to be we're back, we're live, or it's normalcy. I want to know what led to it. They're not no one's saying nothing. Nothing's getting said. And I think that's the part that's killing everybody the most is there's no word. There is
yeah.
no
Yeah.
explanation.
Yeah. The whole covert, it's just mad. I mean, it being this covert is kind of stupid, if you ask me. It's really, one of those things where it's like, come on, dude. Really? I mean, you guys are a pro. Um, you guys are pro. You guys are the standard for the industry. People look to E3, to get their news, and to get their news with a certain polish that, quite frankly, you're not getting from any place else. That's not affiliated with any one of these other companies that are immersed in the industry. So it's
Hmm.
like, I mean, what's the deal? I mean, I want to see it in the news come out. I'm surprised, folks at places like Game Informer and Tech Radar and CNET haven't really kind of touched on that. But it is what it is. I mean, I'm just curious to see. I'm interested in, now that it's not happening. I'm even more curious as to what I could have seen there. What could have developed.
Right.
And and I mean, it's not a really done deal in the sense that um it's not a done deal in the sense that that our individual, the big boys are going to do their own thing. Well, we know Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, those guys tend to do their own thing in addition to E3. So I don't have any doubts in terms of seeing, stuff that they have on their platform. But, as it relates to, relates to everybody else in terms of developers and everything and everybody else, yeah, that's a bad look, man. It's really a bad look all the way around.
Right. And it's like I said, this is not something that's going to be like everybody's like, oh, well, I guess next year. This is going to really be some real reverberations in the industry. This is gonna be kind of bad. I'm not sure how it's gonna react. I wonder. I'm to be honest with you, I really want to know
And
what statement is going to come back to explain what happened, because someone's got to say something.
yeah, agreed. And like I said, it's definitely something that's it's not going to be easy for those guys to explain. It's not going to be easy at all. Um, I just think that the longer that there isn't an explanation going on, that's going to be even worse.
Right.
That's really going to be it's going to be even worse for that to really for that to really be explained away. you know so it's yeah, I mean, ugh, I I'm still kind of bummed about it. I'm
I,
bummed and I'm disappointed.
I was excited because I'm like, okay, finally E3. What new games are coming out? What's the? I'm a Sony gamer. I'm a PlayStation gamer, and I'm also a PC gamer. I was looking forward to what new PC developments personally, new components. I mean, I could watch, I guess. I've already seen what Microsoft is offering. I know what Microsoft is offering on their end. I wanted to know what
Yeah,
AMD was going to do. I wanted to know what
yeah,
Intel was coming out with. I wanted to know what new components I could look forward to. I wanted to see if Ryzen was going to explain why we can't get a graphics card.
yeah. Shout out to our boy Brandon Gale who's following us on Facebook. He just has a one word answer: blacksmith. That's what he was looking for, and it's like,
Wholesome.
dude, wholesome.
Wholesome.
Yeah, that but it's definitely something that I mean, word's already out, obviously, and I mean, people are going to react to it a certain way. I mean, I think um obviously to compensate for it, I think folks are going to kind of do their own thing, but it's definitely something that it's going to remain to be seen exactly how this affects the industry, and
Yeah.
whether it affects the industry in a way that is, you know, um, it's going to really be really negative. And like I said, it's hard to say at this point. It's really hard to say. You know,
It's gonna be a major backlash in the industry. Like I said, the big boys will be fine because they can do their own private showcases if they want to. I know IGN is doing their own showcase, but for the little indie studio that was banking their fiscal year on this, will they be around next year? Will they be able to really get out there to show the world what they're working on? Where when they had the biggest platform just snatched from them, you know?
yeah, agreed.
I,
And again, it's one of those things where it's just hard to fathom. It's really hard to fathom. So we got some other things that we're going to get into, but we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to get into PlayStation and essentially what they dropped uh, earlier this week, which is pretty big in gaming circles. So this might make up a little bit for, E3 dropping the ball like they did. So we'll be right back.
yeah.
The first ever HBCU Band Anthology, The HBCU Experience. The HBCU Band Alumni Edition is a collection of stories written by prominent HBCU band alumni throughout the world. HBCU band alumni who are doing great things in their careers, businesses, and communities nationally and internationally. The authors share their stories and experiences of how being a HBCU band member has molded them into the people they are today. Purchase your copy today and support the HBCU Experience, the HBCU Band Alumni Edition at Amazon.com.
Hello, and we're back. Before we go any further, if you notice at the bottom of our ticker, we have a live feed on the HBCU Digital Network's live page. Right now, we're having some technical difficulties with that feed we're working on. So in the interim, catch the show on our YouTube channel at HBCU Digital and our Twitter feed and Facebook feeds at HBCU Digital. The show is streaming live and will be on demand in all of those locations. We apologize for the inconvenience. Now that that's being said, PlayStation Plus. Leslie, I'm gonna let you. I'm gonna let you take the lead on this one because this is pretty exciting stuff.
Like I said, as a PlayStation gamer outside of PC, I was skeptical at first because I was one of those few people who paid the $65 a year for PlayStation Plus and the $65 a year for PlayStation Now. I didn't have a PS3. So having PlayStation Now, I got to play PS3 games that I never really got to play before, enjoyed it, I got to catch up on games I missed, good games that didn't come out, Vita games, because I never had a Vita. So I loved it. But I didn't like paying $130 a year for both and then having to log in to both if I wanted to do one or the other. Nah, I did. I looked at what they were offering. If you don't do PlayStation Now, it's still essentially the same cost for PlayStation Plus. It's the same $60. It's down to $60 a year now. If you don't do anything outside of PlayStation Plus. Now, they actually gave you 2 more tiers. You get the extra, which gets you more of the PS4 and PS5 games. That's $100 a year, plus everything else you got with PlayStation Plus. Now, what I'm probably going to be looking at to keep the same balance is their PlayStation Plus Premium, which combines PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus, and it's actually saving me like 10 to 15 bucks a year. It's 120, which ain't bad. So I was paying 130, so I'm saving 10 bucks, and I'm still getting both, and I don't have to log into 2 different platforms. I'm here for it. I love it.
Yeah,
love everything about
it. I'm definitely here for it. I mean, and I say this as a PlayStation stan. Yes, I am a PlayStation stan. So for you folks that are out there that, have hatred in your heart for PlayStation stands, y'all can kick rocks, with all due respect. This is, to me, it's big. It's really big because, I mean, anybody that's ever, that's been immersed in PlayStation's gaming, ecosystem from the beginning is loving this. We've always had questions every time there's been system generation in terms of backwards compatibility. And right on cue, our resident Morehouse man Roberto has joined the stream.
What up?
Hey, bro.
Roberto.
Hey,
CP time, bro. CP time.
Man, listen, I'm not even going to, you know what? I'm not even going. Hey.
We're happy to have you here, man. We just, for our audiences out there, Roberto Joseph is one of our core members of the Black Techies. He's a graduate of Morehouse College, rather, Morehouse University. And he's about as avid a gamer as everybody else here. So we were just talking about PlayStation Plus, and essentially,
Mr. Oculus.
yes, Mr. Yeah, see, there you go. You stunting already for no
It
reason. For no reason. But
I'm a child and I'm in my game room, so
yeah. See,
X.
but yeah, see, we're just talking about how big PlayStation Plus was, and the news that they dropped in terms of their tiered system this week, and it's huge. It's huge news, and it's one of those things where we've literally, it's leveled the playing field a lot because when the one thing that Xbox had really over the main competition, which was being PlayStation and GeForce Now for the PC players, was the the sheer volume of the library that they have access to, and this really kills that, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
This is good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that Game Pass has the lead to me, and only because I'm still looking at all the details and digging through all the PlayStation red tape to try and figure out, because again, it's unfair because Xbox is already in the wild and Game Pass is like I on the laptop that I got, that shout out to my wife for giving me this laptop for Christmas. This went to my Surface every day. It's like, hey, you gonna use that Game Pass? Hey, you use that Game Pass? We'll give you 3 months for free. You got a computer, you might as well use it. We know you're not doing no work. Stop fronting. Go ahead and get Game Pass.
Well,
and
I mean,
I'm
that's
like looking in the library. I'm like, damn, the library looks like good stuff.
I have a Game Pass just to not have an Xbox. I'm not even gonna stunt. I don't want to buy an Xbox Series. I don't want to buy an Xbox. I'll just buy the Game Pass and play the games that I want. But at the same time, it's the disadvantage of being the operating system, so they can annoy you with every single step of the way.
Yeah, and I feel like an old man in that sense that I'm like, but I want the box to put it in the room. So when I feel like going to play the thing on the box, I just walk over and push the button on the box and sit down with the controller. And I know it's like you could just sync your PlayStation 5 controller to your laptop and still play the games, and you don't have to do anything different. Like, stop being difficult and just put it on your computer. But like, and all of us work in tech, so like when you're sitting at that computer all day, it's good to have a change of pace, to move from that to go look at your TV and sit in your comfy chair and play. I mean, I know like PC game, if David was here, he'd be like, no, the comfy chair is the gaming chair. That's where I work. That's where I play, and I'm fine. Yes, Leslie, you too.
Since I'm being read, I might as well acknowledge it, man.
Yeah, it's a change. It's a good change of pace for me, and I think mostly because of the people. If anybody's like, "Oh, you got a podcast?" My people at work are like, "Oh, you got a podcast? I gotta check it out." I'm like, "Nah," because I'd be on the podcast complaining about y'all getting on my nerves, which is why I won't game on PC, because I want to get away from my computer so y'all can't bother me. But I think they were smart to do it in tiers, because they always want to give people that opportunity to say, "Hey, do you still want just a regular $60 a year and you get the same stuff you was getting before, or you can jump up a little bit, you know what I'm saying, you can get more, or since you got money, come on, you balling, I mean, you ain't broke, why don't you go ahead and get the big boy? You get all the advantages of cross-play, you get all the free games, you get the game library, PlayStation Now compatibility, and I mean, I guess not compatibility, but PlayStation Now library, you get all that. And you know what? I kept seeing prices, and I kept seeing different prices. And right before I came home, because, driving home, which is why I was late, happy wife, happy life. Will Smith knows that, and I know that too. I was driving home and I was telling my wife about it. I was like, I might have to I don't remember the prices of the tiers because April 1st happened and they were releasing prices, and I was like, I don't believe any of you. I'll wait till April 2nd to look at it again because you get a free year if you sign up on this. Like, nah,
No.
because I'm gonna click it and it's gonna take me to. I'm gonna get rickrolled or something. I'm not trying to do that. So, matter of fact, on my handy dandy phone, I'm gonna go over here and look it up again.
It's 60 for PlayStation Plus as it stands.
Mhm.
100 for the mid tier that gets you more PS4 and PS5 games to the library, and it's
Mhm.
120 for everything. And I was
And that's
paying.
120.
That's 119.99, so 120.
120 a year.
Yeah, for the
Yeah, I mean,
overall. I mean, I was paying 65 and 65, so I was paying 130. I saved $10, and I only
yeah,
got to log into one thing.
yeah.
I'm for
I
it.
mean, I can't. Hey, I can't be mad at that because I mean, $120. You're like, ooh, $120. I don't want to pay that. What about $10 a month? I'd pay $10 a month. You're
Now
like,
you could do the $10 a month is for the PlayStation Now. Now, if you want the big one, it's 18 a month.
yeah. So they're giving you that discount for
Mm-hmm.
going all in at the end of it. And I think that's always the smart thing because if you tell somebody you're not getting a discount for paying it up front, they're going to go with the month by month, and maybe they'll drop off, and maybe they'll cancel it or whatever. But if you tell them like, hey, I'll give you $20 off if you do it, pay me all at once. That money is yours. And there's nothing you can do about it. And all of us
You
PlayStation Plus people that forgot to uncheck the automatic renewal, we all know that Sony ain't giving your money back.
like, well, you got us for another month whether you want it or not. Congrats.
Yeah, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. And I think, and I mean, to be quite honest with you, that's going to be, that's par for the course for any streaming platform these days. I got to be honest, man. With these developments, I kind of feel for cloud-based platforms like Stadia, and I'm looking at Google like, Google's just they're looking at the clock and they're like, yeah, I think it's time for us to go to another project now. Yeah. It's this nice experiment. I know Sergey Brin is looking at his expenditures right now in his office at Google Tower, and he's like, do we really need a cloud gaming service?
Yeah.
I mean, we?
I think about all the things. I remember, Jesus, what was their social media site? I can't remember it now, but I used to use it.
Exactly. You can't. You can't remember.
I would go on there and I would get free faces for my watches, and like they would always have like emulators and stuff on there and I think maybe because I was using it, and I'm gonna have to go look it up now because if I don't look it up, it's gonna drive me crazy. Was it Google Goggles, Project Loon, where they're going to use weather balloons to put Wi-Fi everywhere?
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was something like that.
Yeah, I think Google Auto was turned to Android Auto was probably the first project I heard of them that I was like, that's crazy, and I'm like, oh, that actually works. That's super good. That's a great idea.
Yeah,
but they've had a lot of ideas that they kind of been like, well, that didn't work. We still have money. Let's do something else. And I can't be mad at them.
Yeah, I mean, but unfortunately that's the nature of
Google
these
Plus.
wars.
That was the name of their social media site, Google Plus. It was like Facebook and Twitter, but worse. It was like both of those things combined. It was like it's where Instagram is right now, where it's like you're mostly looking at a bunch of videos of things and you have to click a link to go somewhere else. Except I think Google Plus was probably better executed in that way that everything was kind of integrated. If you were like an Android geek like me and you wanted, it's funny, like they would like put like illegal versions of Google Play things on there on Google Plus, and I would go there and I would download the copies of the app to see what it would look like, or they would just dump the whole like operating system somewhere in there. And it was definitely for nerds. It was absolutely for nerds. Like there were like your friends from high school on there arguing about whether or not 5G gave you the flu or something. So it was just nerds on there arguing about nerd stuff. And maybe that's why I didn't do well, because there's no women on there selling feet pics. Your grandma's in there updating things, so there wasn't enough to keep everybody excited.
I have to add this disclaimer. The views of Roberto Joseph are not necessarily the views of the Black Techies or the HBCU Digital Network. We can continue now.
And I managed to keep it on this side of the PG fence, because I was like, there isn't can't talk about that. No, not that either. Because that's the stuff that makes social media.
Now,
cat videos and babies.
Now, I want our viewers that are viewing this right now, that disclaimer is tongue in cheek.
He's a
this show, for those of you on HBCU Digital Network that are new to this podcast and haven't followed it, in its audio form on Apple Podcasts or other places, we talk about everything. And we talk about everything in detail, a lot of times without filter. So just so you know, if you got your kids watching, we're going to put out a disclaimer that this isn't one of those episodes that you want your 3 or 4 year old that's trying to get introduced into what technology is to watch this. That might not be a good idea.
Right.
Learn some things. So, but we're very cognizant of that, and we will put out disclaimers as needed for those episodes. We try to keep it PG and family friendly, but those episodes that we don't, you guys will know. You guys will know in advance. We've got there's another thing outside of technology that happened this week.
Come on.
The slap heard around.
Just put rip the Band-Aid off. Let's go. Come on.
Yeah, the slap heard around the world. We're going to talk about. Yes, we're going to talk about this Hatfield and McCoy type thing that Chris Rock and the family of Will and Jada Smith have once we come back from our break. So stay tuned. This is going to be funny, y'all. And stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Yeah, baby, you know what time it is. Now let's get it started. Are you kidding me? Unreal!
While our HBCUs are mostly known for academic rigor, community, they also know how to turn up.
Does he have it? Yes, he does!
Yeah,
jamming to the music.
Thank you for the media geniuses over at HBCU Digital Network for that little spot. That joint was hot. We need more of that. Adam, we need more of that. Thank you, fam. Appreciate it. So I got some thoughts. And I'm going to preface this by saying, before we start unpacking all of the cultural and pseudo-racial stuff that has came along with this slap that was heard around the world, there's some things that us regular folk need to kind of make clear. One, don't repeat that scenario in your daily walk without expecting a receipt.
Unless you got Will Smith money and influence.
Well, that's what we're getting to. We're talking about the regular people out here, like
Don't
us.
Don't do that.
Now, I'm saying this and also saying that in terms of protecting your spouse and protecting your significant others, we're not saying, or at least I'm not saying, don't do it. That's something that is, you know, widely missing, in terms of protection of Black women and Black womanhood, and I'm all for that. However, keep in mind that you may be subject to a receipt if you initiate a confrontation like the one we saw at the Academy Awards. If you're a regular person, if you're, like Roberto said, not privy to the resources of Will Smith's wealth and celebrity and venue. I'm picturing this. I live in Washington, D.C. metro area. I'm picturing this scenario going down in Anacostia someplace where some brother gets off the metro or off the subway with his girl, and some brother says something to him or to his girl, maybe smacks his girl on the behind. That was really disrespectful. And the brother turns around and says, "What are you doing?" Now, verbally confronting somebody, that's one thing. This brother walks up and slaps the guy that smacked his girl's booty, not knowing who he is or who he could be or what he could have access to.
Yeah, don't try that at home.
Yeah, that scenario for regular folk could be a lot more dangerous than what we saw on the stage at the Academy Awards.
Somebody gonna up the blicky.
And if you don't understand what that means,
and mind you, and I say this in all sincerity. This is something that has caused people in Black, Twitter and all over, social media to start having their own views in terms of unpacking what happened. And I think there are a lot of really good things that have come from the discussion from it, because there are a lot of problems in our community, specifically when it comes to how we, what we do to protect women, what we do to protect Black women. And I get it. I get the whole, dynamic of that. That being said, for us regular folk, don't misconstrue what happened on that Academy Award stage with the reaction that you would get doing this to Pookie and Ray Ray as you walk out of a metro station or walk out of a store. That might not be that good optically. I'm just going to tell you. That might not end well. And that's not to say that you may not have to take that step. But bear in mind that walking up on stage and open-handed bitch slapping somebody at the Academy Awards that you outweigh by about 50 or 60 pounds and are 4 inches taller than might not work the same in real life against somebody you don't know. Now, that being said, what are your views? What do you guys think?
Ladies first.
I literally had to go back. I had to think, but it was brought up. This ain't the first time Chris Rock has been disrespectful toward Jada. It's not the first. It's not even the second. It's almost a trend. First time, haha, haha. Second time, haha. Third time, she shot Will that look. Every Black man knows that look. when your wife shoots you that look, you are now in what's called decision time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you sit there and know that you have to go back home with her, knowing that nothing is going to happen? Or do you react? Will chose to react. Now, for Chris Rock, he could have done so many other jokes. He could have turned that into a positive if he would have wanted to go, okay, let's talk about balding black chicks. Why didn't you go the Black Panther route? Nobody wouldn't have said shit if you'd went Black Panther
Agreed.
route. You went
Agreed.
to a movie that was literally dehumanizing a female for losing their hair. You went to a movie that people had to go back and Google. The moment he said G.I. Jane, I was like, that's why everybody who's known that movie, I aged myself. I know that movie. Everybody who knows that movie, that's why everybody at the Academy was like,
Yeah,
ooh,
me too.
ooh.
Yeah.
Notice no one laughed. Everybody was like, ooh,
Yeah.
that's a bad one.
Now, side note, did anybody catch Lupita's reaction
Yes,
during this whole thing?
her reaction was
Oh, I
my
have several
everything.
memes. I have several memes in my phone.
It was my
her
life.
reaction.
Like,
Dude, she ain't want none of that smoke at all, bro. She was
Like-
just like, bro, how fast can I get away from this whole situation?
like that's one of those like, y'all got me here for real? Okay,
He's like, well, I got some Dora training. I could.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what's
I
happening.
could.
Streets.
This is what we doing
Yeah.
in these streets. But Chris
Yeah.
Rock chose the most dehumanizing woman losing her hair movie to a woman who lost her hair to alopecia. It's not a fashion statement. It's a health condition that's been known about for the last 3 to 4 years. So, dude, you kind of reached for this prize. You reached for it, and it
Yeah.
was given to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can
gave
dig it.
you one stupid prize on this one.
Absolutely.
Now everybody else's reaction is like, "Oh my god, I can't believe he did that." Every black person was like, "Oh my god, he didn't have to
Yeah.
say that joke."
Yeah, pretty much.
You could have went anywhere else with that bald head thinking, but you reached for a white movie in front of a majority white academy. Because notice for so many years, everybody's like, okay, we're going to be back to hashtag Oscars so white for the next couple years. We've been set back.
Yeah,
It's happening again.
literally.
We're back.
Yeah,
We're back now. But you reached for a white movie as opposed to you could have gone positive with that. And everybody would have been like, ha ha, that's funny. But you reached for something that obviously the moment it left your mouth, everybody audience is like,
yeah.
Yo.
There was no
even he
hysterical.
knew the joke fell flat. And then he paid an extra price for it. So you had a bad joke and a bitch left. So you double loss, 2 L's.
Yeah.
yeah, fam.
James Todd Smith.
You really that whole thing could have been avoided if, for the love of God, keep this woman's name out your mouth, dude.
Yeah. I mean, and see, I've seen a lot of people that have, and I'm sorry, Leslie, are you done with your point before I sit on my soapbox and go on my rant?
Because this is good. I can't wait for this person. Personally, I can't wait. One last thing. If I'd have been Jada personally, having a dude that would step up and do that for me, I prefer a man that could talk himself out of a situation to de-escalate. But if he can't verbally de-escalate, if them hands got to come out, I'm fine with that too. Get you a dude that does both.
Yeah.
Roberta.
Yeah, I don't think that I don't think Will is not the type of dude that can't de-escalate. I think he chose actively, this is how I want to handle it because I'm sick of it. And to be fair, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of what I've seen from social media has been very split down the middle, very Hatfields and McCoy kind of situation. Very well, Hatfields and McCoy. We're not going to use that white stuff. We're going to say it's very Bloods and Crips. It's very polarizing. We got to that point where it's like there's a lot of people, and I'm not cool with this mentality of, dang, Will, Jada. Not only did Jada embarrass you about the August Alsina thing, but then she made you go up here and hit this guy. And she was unfaithful to you, so you shouldn't protect her because I'm still mad as some random guy in Georgia that has no bearing whatsoever and no money and no status and no influence on your life at all. But for me, in my opinion, I feel like you should have done this. And I saw a lot of that, and a lot of it I shut down because I was like, A, this is not your marriage. Why do you care? B, he's still with her. That's still his wife. C, he brought her with him. And he has openly said, that's his wife. They love each other. That's a wrap. Like, he's done. He's not mad. Why are you mad? If he's not mad at her, why are you mad? And can we please do away with the fact that we think that Jada was smashing some 20-year-old kid in the house and Will was upstairs crying in the east wing of the mansion? Will Smith's been voted sexiest man alive how many times? Will Smith is Will Smith. He's got money. He's good looking. He's got influence. I doubt that he was at home crying and sad by himself. And if their marriage is open the way it is, which again we don't know, I'm sure he had his share of options. It wasn't like he was like, oh, I can't believe Jada did this, because there's ashy men everywhere for whatever reason, crying about Jada being toxic and Jada forcing him to do this, and I don't buy that. I feel like Will seems like a pretty able man that if he didn't want to do it, he wouldn't have. But that being said, and that being stepped aside, and let's do away with that, because if Jada was this perfect wife that everybody wanted her to be, and they couldn't judge that, there's a lot of dudes like, oh, Will Smith was corny for that because the August Alsina. Okay, that's his wife. That's the mother of his kids. That's the love of his life. And some of you that you're watching this and you're like, I don't agree with you, Roberto. First of all, shut up. Second of all, if you are on a first date with a woman that you don't know at all, and some guy was like, man, y'all see that girl with the bad weave over there? She looks stupid. Oh boy, look crazy being with her. You would get up and be like, yo, what you say? Because not only has he offended the women that you're with, and in that social scenario, you are her protector, even if you just met. Will and her have been together for like 100 years. So like, we're not even going to pretend like you would be stupid to say like, yeah, baby, I was looking at it, do like a raccoon on top of your head, but I wasn't going to say nothing. My man over there by the bar is right. Never. Either your ego would step in that situation, you would protect her, or again, the social contract of you being with that woman and you now being her protector would step in and you would say something. So shut up. The next point is that Will did not start that. Chris started that. You don't never in your black behind life ever make fun of a black woman's hair in a crowd of white people.
Hey,
and
real
not,
quick,
especially not if you made a whole movie about how good hair is relative. You don't do that. You don't. I wish if I was in a crowd, I'd be like, hey, Chris, hey, shut up. You don't, nah, bro, not in front of the, come on, man. Dame Judi Dench right here. Why would you do that? We don't do that in front of each other. We don't ever do that in front of them.
Hey, real quick.
Yeah.
Disclaimer just came in from one of our mentors and benefactors, Adam Powell, who is the founder of HBCU Digital Network. And per verbatim, we don't agree with you, Roberto.
You don't have to. You don't have to. I don't think anybody hired Roberto to agree with him, because I don't like because what this boils down to is not Will shouldn't have done it because he wasn't in the right. It's Will shouldn't have done it because white people were watching. And I don't go for that at all, because we were wearing 3-piece suits and saying, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, no, and we were still getting hosed and thrown at dogs, and our baby was getting fed to alligators for fun. So wearing a suit and playing nice don't solve jack. Yeah. Also, violence not being the answer. In America, violence is usually the answer. And sometimes violence is the answer. It's not always the answer. And I told my own son, if somebody's bothering you, tell the teacher. The second time they're bothering you, if they're bothering you with their words, use your words back. Say something funnier to them. The third time, if they're not listening, you have permission to hit them. And you can, if the teacher says something, you say, hey, I told you. And he got into the scenario where kids were touching him and pushing him. He told the teacher ain't listen. He told them, leave him alone. Kids ain't listen. The third time they kept messing with him, the third day, they kept messing with him. And I talked to the teacher prior to the slap. The kids kept messing with him. Christian slapped both them kids. And do you think when they called me, I was upset? I was proud because I was like, you use restraint them first 2 times. And after the first 2 times, that's on them. And people like, well, you don't answer words with violence. What is the phrase "them's fighting words" mean then? Has anybody ever gotten away with a yo mama joke without hands?
Wow.
I got called the N-word to my face, and I hit that dude. And I know for a fact nobody in that bar was going to be like, oh, did you try talking to him? Did you try asking Jesus for patience? No. You asked for that. Now, do I think Will was right to walk up on stage and hit a man in front of everybody? No. I don't think that he handled it the right way, but I don't blame him either. I'm not saying I condone it, but I say I understand.
Now that Roberto has mentioned that particular part of this equation, this is where the unpacking is going to start. I'm going to say this one thing, and I want everybody that's watching and listening to understand where I'm coming from this. It takes a certain amount of privilege to be able to do what Will Smith consciously did. This wasn't a visceral reaction. This was a calculated reaction because Will Smith knew that he had a certain amount of cachet to be able to stroll his ass up on the stage, open hand pimp slap a comic and stroll his ass back down and take a drink and then cuss and do whatever he was doing.
Yeah.
That being said,
still win an award. And then
exactly.
rap with it.
The thing that really got me about this was the whole surrealness of that sequence of events. Okay, Chris told the joke. People are like, "Ooh, shit, this joke didn't go over well." Jada looked at Will's like, "Ninja, what are you going to do about this?"
Yeah, because I honestly think Will laughed as a reaction.
He laughed, and he's like,
okay.
Okay.
The funny thing
all right.
is,
That's what we doing? Okay.
The funny thing is you can see Will pause for a second, and you can see the gears turning in his head. It's like, okay, how am I going to react to this?
He said, "We gonna let this slide? You want to let it slide?"
Yeah, and see, and that's the thing that's really, that's really kind of interesting about this whole thing is that, in my opinion, they were both wrong. They were both wrong, and they were both right in a sense. You should have Chris Rock, touched that joke given their history. Probably not. I mean, let's be honest.
Can I ask real quick? How many Ricky? There are people like, oh, Ricky Gervais has been worse, and this guy has been worse. Have you ever seen anybody talk about Judi Dench being wrinkly, or anybody talk about Javier Bardem being super tall but awkward looking, even though he's actually short? He looks like he's tall, but he's really Hollywood people short. I've never seen anybody talk about people's physical appearance on the show. It's always been, I thought your movie was boring. I thought this was bad about your set. I thought maybe if you used some of that money on that Gucci outfit that you got and used it on this movie, maybe Thanos would have looked more real. Those are the jokes I'm used to.
Yeah, you used to hearing around proximity jokes, but never direct attacks.
Especially a person that's not even there for her. Yeah. Jada wasn't there to receive an award.
Yeah,
she wasn't there. I think that's for Will. And
and I think that's the big thing, and I think Roberto touched on it earlier, was that, well, both of you actually did. There's a history there. There's a history of, sniping and stuff, that's gone on in terms of, their dynamic between those two. And, mind you, Will and Chris were boys prior to, Will getting married. I don't know. Now, I'm not, privy to the whole celebrity history of that dynamic. But what I will say is that particular instance in front of millions and millions of audiences, Will was very calculated on what he did. Let's be real about that. That dude knew he was getting an award that night. He knew there was million people watching. And, Chris, his part in it, yeah, he's got to own that up too, because he went a joke too far. He went a joke too. He got the Sonic.
He could have gotten knocked out.
he got the
Could have
Sonic
got
ring
knocked
smack.
out. He got.
So
he did.
He really did. He
all
got.
the gold rings are on the floor for millions of audiences to see. He got he
got
got
his
dinged
go
pretty good. But I mean, I think the big thing is that there's a lot of privilege on both sides there. For this to occur, the way it occurred and where it occurred, because like I said, in the real world, you do that to somebody else, whether you're protecting, and the question of protecting your spouse isn't really a question. If if you're a brother and you love your spouse, yeah, you're going to protect them. That's to me, that's kind of a non-starter here. What is relevant here is the fact that there's enough privilege present for him to take the calculated action that he did, whether it was justified or otherwise. And for us real folk that are looking at it through our real regular day lenses, we're saying, oh yeah, we agree with that. But if I did that, I don't know. I don't know.
Like because I mean, if everybody, and I think everybody could think about right now, you could fill up a hand of like, how many do I have? There's Jim from accounting. There's that guy that always, never wears a towel in the gym. There, you go through that list of people that, like, if I had that opportunity to smack somebody, I have a list of people that I would smack, but I know better. Because again, if we wanted to, we're all adults. We could eat cake for breakfast every day and no one would stop us. If you wanted to, you could drive directly off a bridge and no one would stop you. You can do whatever you want. You're fully in control of your own actions. And we choose not to smack people on a regular basis because we know it's not because like, oh, it's not an enticing idea. It's because of the consequences. That's all we ever think about. Like, you run a red light and no one's looking, you ain't do nothing wrong. Like Homer Simpson said, it's only a crime when you get caught.
Yeah.
So no one's
So real quick, we've got some really good guests that have been following our podcast today. We're going to show some of our responses on our face, from the podcast. Here's one from Sanchel Johnson. They were both wrong. I agree with
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah,
I agree.
From Brandon Gale.
That was my initial reaction. My wife was like, "You're terrible. He smacked him." I was like, "Yo, that's funny."
Oh man, I got to show that again. Another one from Brandon Gale.
I'm dying.
Yeah, Brandon, I agree. We dying too. All of us have been dying about this whole thing all
Jesus
week.
Christ. The whole situation. It was a situation that didn't have to happen. It could have been stopped at any given point. Any one of them could have said, I'm not going to do this. Even people who were in the know said Chris didn't tell that joke at rehearsal. So that's an audible. He called an audible on that one.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and to me, I think Will could have got up there and said something funny, or he could have did something cornier.
He could have hugged him and said, man, you're right. That's funny. Decisions were made in the moment.
Yeah, he could have put him in a headlock and gave him a little fake noogie and been like, all right, little man, why don't you go sit down somewhere? Let dad finish the since you ain't got no jokes. Since you got no good jokes, let me do this. And he could have done the documentary thing. And Chris would have, imagine if Chris would have like, okay, I guess I'll
go sit down now.
And just walked out the screen and Will would have finished the monologue. I would have been like, dang, he just
took his job.
He just put his man. I mean, but thankfully, Will slapped him, and Chris got the smack stimulus. His tickets went up in sale. Even Tony Rock, which I forgot he existed. Tony Rock actually is on like things now. People are asking him questions. I'm sure TMZ will probably. People might even go to his shows at this point and care about what he has to say outside of his relation to Chris.
Yeah, Sanchel Johnson has another observation, which I think is really good. As someone who is now actively trying to get into the union, this now makes it harder for people of color.
Why?
And I think, I think
when January 6th happened, I don't think white people were like, oh man, now I can't get a job at Denny's because these idiots went and stormed the Capitol. Why are we always have to be like in hive mind? We are not monolith. We keep saying that we're not the same thing. and yet every time a black person does something, all black people are like, "Oh, why do we allow that? Why do we keep letting that happen? Like, why do if I don't? And I think we're the main ones. We're the main ones that do it. We're like, dang, Will Smith done set us back 100 years.
Well, I'll tell you that. I'll tell you this, and you kind of just touched on that in the last part of what you just said. From a historic perspective, we've always had to be like that in order to keep cohesiveness of our communities, of our, how can I put this, of our identity. And I think for better or worse, that's always been something that's translated to everything that we, look at in this society, whether it's something that's collective. And in certain instances, it's a very big positive. It's a boon. In other instances, is a huge negative. Like this is one of those instances where, black folk ain't a monolith. There are a lot of people that have a lot of different thoughts about, how this went down and what's a priority and what isn't. And this, this speaks to a broader dynamic that we as African Americans have in this country when it comes to not just issues like this, because I'm gonna be real, this was more funny to me than anything else because it was just like,
these are two men arguing with each other. And I don't think Roberto is responsible for Will and vice versa. I'm not saying Chantel is wrong for her thought. I'm saying all of us are wrong. No, I mean, it is a reality, but like it's unfair in that sense that we have to think about, oh man, Will Smith is Will Smith. He's at that stage. He's front row. He won an Oscar. He's doing all these positive things. And yet the one bad thing that he does suddenly wipes everything off the map. And I mean, we can commend Chris Rock for his composure. And I guess people are like, oh, he was the bigger man. I said, no, I think bro got smacked and he couldn't really figure out what to do. He really got stunned because no one thought that was going to happen. He stood there with his hand behind his back and got smacked. I don't think it was composure so much. It was just, he was stunned. And why are we, okay, if we pretend that it was composure, then why can't we champion that and say, okay, great job. Look at him. White people, look, he stood there and took it. So we know how to behave. We know how to behave. We just don't slap people. Sometimes we take the slap.
Well, I'll be honest. I wish Will Smith was present, in the E3 boardroom to smack the sonic rings out of the folks that are running E3 or chose to cancel it because,
I thought it was April Fool's.
Because a brother wants to see what's going on at E3. Will, if you're watching this, you can smack the sonic rings out of them. Please.
Get us an explanation. Shit.
I mean, for real. Man. That being said,
I just think it's crappy. I mean, and I agree with. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. If it's Sanchel.
It's Sanchel.
I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. But I'm not disagreeing with you in the reality of it. I'm challenging people by asking that question: is why is it that white people? I mean, the entire state of Florida should have canceled white people by now, because every day somebody has sexually assaulted an alligator or something at the local Krusty Krab, and we never have to see anybody else like, dang man, we bad for this. I mean, the entire Trump presidency was a disgrace, and Sleepy Joe is like, it's better. Don't get me wrong, but y'all, like other white people, are knocking him down at every chance they get. And to me, I'm like, we don't. But I mean, Kamala do something wrong, and everybody jump on her, and I'm like, dang, why can't y'all can't chill?
Right.
But at what point do we stop letting Will Smith's one failure outweigh all of his successes? And all of a sudden we're like, we can't be proud of him because of what he did. And people are like, well, I lost all respect for Will Smith. Like, okay, Gary from Indiana. Like, no one cares what your opinion is.
I'm just saying that Roman Polanski still has Oscars. So
for real.
Russell Crowe was still there. So I mean, Liam Neeson, besides Liam Neeson completely making me angry and offending me through his terrible acting through Blacklight, and whoever made that movie, you should be smacked several times. You should be taken to the edge of something very high and smacked, and then they should let you fall without knowing that you have a parachute. Smack the whole sonic rings out that man. Like, I hope that somebody smacks you right before Easter dinner, so you smack the taste out your mouth. You can't taste none of the ham. That's what I hope happens with Blacklight. So Liam Neeson, Russell Crowe, Roman Polanski, like all these dudes. I mean, Mel Gibson. I'm surprised
Christian
he got
Bale.
away with Christian. I mean, man, and Ezra Miller out there wilding like the Flash ain't that good, bro. Like you can get taken out any minute. We can replace you. Grant Gustafson from CW. He's like 400 episodes in. He could be Flash for the DCEU, whatever it's called. So I think every time we let our pale companions get away with something and it doesn't speak to them as a whole, and then we have to then say like Serena and King Richard itself is a testament to the triumph of Black people, and yet the slap is what outweighs all that stuff. Questlove got an Oscar. I mean, and you saw Sam Jackson got that Lifetime Award, and Sam Jackson was like, ha, ha, ha. He'd be like, man, I've been trying to smack Chris Rock for 3 decades now, bro. I appreciate it. Because I don't think Sam didn't like he was mad at all.
He likes it.
But I appreciate Sam, and shout out to Sam and Tyler Perry for coming to Will's aid and kind of checking in with him and making sure that they, as and Denzel Washington, most of all, as the elder Blacks in the room, came over to him and be like, "Hey, bro, you don't do that no more."
These people.
Yeah,
and I think
I appreciate that, and I want us to look at both sides of that coin. There was anger in it, but there was compassion. And there was a time where we could come back and check in and say, okay, you did that. That's out of character for you. Why did you do that?
Yeah. And I think, the biggest lesson that, folks that are viewing this incident, and I don't even want to call it an incident. It's, something, it just happened.
It was an exchange.
What it is what it is. Yeah, exchange. Is that
it's offsetting penalties. No loss of downs.
I just want folks
down again.
We're at force. Just keep going.
I just want folks to understand that, a lot of us, that have commented on this stuff in social media are viewing it through a lens that, quite simply, we don't even understand the dynamics of most times. We just don't. To me, both of them are wrong. Will, in this instance, he's definitely justified in feeling the way he felt. The only thing I can say is that, if the circumstances and scenario and the location were different, or even the presenter, the threat of a physical receipt from that may have been a lot different. He did it with the calculated understanding that he wouldn't get a physical receipt from the action. And I think that's what a lot of folks, who are on either side of the debate really don't necessarily get. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. You make jokes as a comedian. Sometimes people are pissed. You don't know how they're going to react, and especially if those jokes are very pointed and they're very targeted, which to me that joke was. So it's like it is what it is. That being said, we have come to the close of the Black Techies podcast. In closing, I just want to get some final thoughts from my two colleagues about the week's events outside of the slap heard around the world. And what you think is going to come about going forward. Roberto, we'll start with you since you were the latecomer, bruh. You were on CP, so you're going to start this one.
And I'll make this as concise as I can. Subscriptions. I think we've gotten past that point of ownership where I just can't give you $100 for this thing and have it. Now I need to give you $10 a month and I can borrow it from you. I think it's a slippery slope. Xbox started it. Well, not Xbox didn't start it. Really, like there's a car subscription thing down here in Atlanta where you can just get luxury cars. You pay a certain amount of money. I think it's like $800 a month. And you can swap cars. There is, which Tesla's going to start doing, I think in New York and California for like $950. You can switch between whatever Tesla you want per month. And I'm sure there's a bunch of caveats and a bunch of red tape around it, but you ain't never going to own that car. That's just going to be something you borrow all the time. We've taught home ownership and ownership and ownership and ownership. And now Apple's doing it. They're doing an iPhone subscription service, which means everybody else is going to do it because Apple is. Microsoft, Apple, PlayStation, once they get their stock up, they're going to start doing subscription services. We of course see Game Pass and PlayStation Plus Premiere are going to allow you to rent all these games essentially. I mean, we got kind of used to Netflix. Like I had a big wall of DVDs in my old spot, which I don't have anymore because I'm like, I still have the DVDs, but I don't have them out. They're somewhere because I'm like, I can just go on my TV and boop, 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 click it, and I can just watch whatever I want. And I think it's convenient, but it's also in my mind weird because I want to own this. Like this is mine. I paid for it, so I want this to be mine. And of course, us being spoiled by new things, they're like, well, you can borrow that Pixel 6, and when you've paid off half of it, trade it in for the Pixel 7. Why not? Why would you keep something old? Ew. You always want something new. So I think it's the wave, but it's dangerous in my head because I'm like, we're getting away from ownership, and we're always going to be in a space where we're always paying for something instead of owning it. We're always going to be paying a bill instead of like just having the thing. So I'm just saying, watch out for that. Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, Sony. I mean, think about those names in tech. When they start doing that, man, that's a wrap. That's how we got contactless payment now, because Android payments were been going around. As soon as Apple Pay came out, every little mom and pop shop got a little square thing stand now that you can swipe and Bing and pop and stuff with. So I'm not saying it's going to cause the apocalypse. Please don't get me wrong with that. I'm just saying that I feel like we're going to be in a constant cycle of paying for things we don't own.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think, the slippery slope that could be with, with the whole subscription service model in general, think of it, for folks out there that want a really general visual picture, think of it as a big pond. You're a fish. Mm-hmm. And the subscription service is the fishing rod and the bait and the hook. You bite, you get bit, you bite, you get hooked, and next thing you know, you're in the boat and there's no way for you to get back out. Mm-hmm. That's the downside of the actual structure. And if there's, in my opinion, if there's not a little bit more in terms of controls, in terms of accountability, we'll see that a lot more. And I mean, it's a pretty appealing thing. It's a very attractive notion to be able to, pay and forget.
Yeah.
Because that's what, because technology is technology and it's attractive for a reason. But I think, Roberto is spot on when it comes to stuff like that. I think it's something that we all have to be very cognizant of as consumers going forward.
Because we're giving consent every time, like no matter, the iPhone's going to be, it was $1,300 this year. Next year it might be $2,000, and they're going to stop being afraid of making it more money because they're like, well, you're not buying it outright. So why does it matter?
That's a good point. But there's also a kind of a other side to that too. It gets out of it almost gives a middle ground to those who knowingly can't afford these things and can't afford these consoles, can't afford these phones. It puts them on a level playing field. Like, hey, I may not be able to, this may not be mine, but it's mine right now.
Yeah.
And that's just a lot of the mentality that we have in this time period right now. It's not about what you own, it's about what you have. Now, whether you own it or not, that's something completely different. But guess what? I still got it though.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Rent-A-Center and errands are right there with you.
Right. And see, that's the mentality that goes with the subs. It's like, okay, it's not that I'm renting it. It's not that you don't know how I got it. You just know I got it. So I could be paying for it, I could be renting it, I could be owning it, but you see me right here with it right now, and you're not going to question it. Yeah. And that's going to continue to happen. It's the same thing with like game system consoles. It's already hard enough to get a console just because part shortages. We're still in the middle of a war. That's still a thing. So it's going to be harder to get these things. So it's a whole lot easier to stunt with what you can rent before you can actually own it outright. By the time somebody figures out you don't own it, you're on to the next thing anyway. Who cares? You still had it. You had it when it was hot. You don't have it when it's not.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, for those of you that have been following us today, thank you. Thank you for your attentiveness and dealing with our topics through the podcast. We're at the end of our show. For those of you that did not get a chance to catch the live stream of the podcast on HBCU Digital Network and our respective outlets, we are on demand on both HBCU Digital and on Facebook and on YouTube and Twitter and every place else video that HBCU Digital has a reach. Our content can also be found everywhere that audio podcasts can be found. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, you name it, Spotify, you name it, we're there. So follow us. For those of us that have been riding for us for day one, we really, really appreciate your patronage. And we're going to continue to keep on content, the dope content coming as much as we can, especially now that, HBCU Digital has kind of given us a little bit of a little platform to do our thing. Thank you, HBCU Digital. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I mean, even though y'all don't agree with me, I still love y'all.
Until next time, folks, thank you for catching us. Signing out. Hail Wakanda.
Wakanda forever.
Yeah, baby, you know what time it is. Now let's get it started. Are you kidding me? Unreal.
While our HBCUs are mostly known for academic rigor, community, they also know how to turn up.
Dorsey, how